Hello, everyone. Welcome to Real Dad Speak, a show where real dads share their stories about being present in their child's lives with the goal of raising responsible adults. I am your host, Sarah McClure, and my guest today is Reverend John Hall. Reverend John and I met at work many years ago. Reverend John and I worked a lot of community events and always had a good time helping the citizens. At that time, I was single and Reverend John was married, but we shared the same last name. So we started referring to one another as cuz. Reverend John has been married to his beautiful wife, Sheila, for over 30 years. And currently, Reverend John is still working in the community along with his wife. Together, they have birthed Rehoboth International Ministries, is located on the east side of Detroit, Michigan, where he is the pastor. Today, I'm going to talk to Reverend John about raising two sons who play professional football. Welcome, Reverend Cuz.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to be able to share with you and your guests. What an exciting time it is to be able to share again with you during this season with Real Dad Talk.
All right. So I like to start off with just some background information. So just ask you a couple of quick questions about how you grew up. So, in what city did you grow up in?
Well, actually, I was born and raised here in the city of Detroit by way of Georgia and Alabama. My family, of course, my dad is from Alabama, and so I got that Southern upbringing, and just here in the city, enjoying life, trying to take it one day at a time.
All right. Do you have any siblings?
Actually, I do. I have three sisters who are older than me, and I had a younger brother. Of course, he made his transition at birth, so it's just the remainder of us, just four. Three girls, and I'm the baby.
Okay. All right. Are you guys close?
Absolutely. We were raised to be a tight knit family, thank God. With the upbringing of my mother, that was one of the things that she tried to instill in us as young adults is to remain together. All we had was each other. So yeah, we ironically we're about a mile away from each other as we speak right now. So whenever one move, it's a community thing, and I think it started since our early childhood days.
Okay. All right. Are any of your sisters in ministry?
Actually, I do. I have my youngest sister, Deshawn. She serves in ministry as one of my staff administrators who deal with the young adults as well as our community outreach program. And the other one works in ministry, but not per se in the field of doing the quote unquote behind the pulpit kind of situation. But she is actively involved over the food ministry, and so we're trying to make the name last forever in the ministry.
All right. Where'd you go to school?
Let's see. I guess you could call it a gypsy. I started in Detroit, moved. Went to let's see. Started on the east side. We moved a lot, and that'll be a part of my testimony. My mom was a gypsy, so I went from Campbell Elementary to Norville Elementary. That was then moving to the east side. Then back and forth to the west side. I went to Newton Middle School, Northern Middle School, Persian High School, then Redford High School. Then I went to college. Right. So gypsy all over the place.
Wow. So you know the city then.
Oh yeah, basically you can call me a gypsy. So
Okay.
I'm the modern day taxi cab driver. Know the city like the back of my hand.
Wow. Okay. Were you popular in school? I mean, you wasn't there long, but in each one it sounds like.
Let me tell you something. I was the class comedian, and so all I had was my humor, and so I made myself available to make sure that I was known throughout. Got well known in high school, well known in middle school, and I think it was because of my wanting to be a part of something or someone, and the best way I can do was through laughter and just trying to express myself during that way. Yeah.
Did
So
you
yeah,
play sports?
play basketball and football, and retired from both of them because I didn't have the presence of my father being there, and of course that's all a part of the story. But yeah, avid basketball player, football player, and I ran track. So Yeah, and then end up, believe it or not, ironically, end up becoming a singer.
Oh,
Right.
okay. All right. So growing up, what did your teachers used to say about you?
Mr. Personality. They
Okay.
used to say that, man, I remember vividly one of the teachers saying, John, you not only are you a class clown, but you you are an individual that will be loved by many. And of course, uh, I guess I lived up to that name in some sort, kind of slid into my personality and made me who I am today.
All right. So what did you want to be when you were growing up?
I wanted to be a doctor, believe it or not. That was my long term goal. Outside of that, I wanted to major in the medical field, minor in law, and subsequently, the medical field was a little bit too long for me. And so I joined and ventured over into the law portion and made me. Yeah, I said, "Oh, that's an easy, simple choice. I think I can handle that."
Okay.
And
Okay.
26 years, almost 26 years later, and still in law, looking forward to retirement pretty soon.
All right. So what did your parents do for a living?
My dad was a steel worker. Steel worker, worked in a plant, migrated again from the South, and transitioned to the city of Detroit. One of the things he wanted to do was to make our family better, so he worked in the field mill, just as his dad did. And my mother was she used to work at the United States Postal Service, so she worked in the post office until she got injured, and consequently ended up retiring, early retirement due to medical disability.
Okay. What types of activities did you guys do as a family, or were your parents always working?
Well, that's when the story changed. It started, let's see, they both started out working, and unfortunately, my dad had a problem with alcohol, and it caused a little disruption in the family. And at the time, my mother was, you know, actively involved, engaged with my father, and the altercation, you know, unfortunately, domestic violence happened, and my mother became one that was on the run from my father, and so at the age of 2, we kind of broke away from him, and subsequently running throughout the city trying to get away from him, and but it wasn't him per se. It was that demon, that alcohol demon, if I could use that, that subsequently caused the separation and caused some disruption in our home. But we made it. We made it. I will say that we made it.
So your mom would find some place to live on the west side, and
Yep.
then your dad would
He,
discover where y'all live, and so she moved
absolutely.
again.
Yeah. And that's when the gypsies started. I mean,
Oh, okay.
we would get settled in one neighborhood, and my father was trying to keep up with us. In his opinion, or as he stated, he was trying to find us because he wanted to reestablish that. But again,
Right.
she was running away from him, and the best way she could do to keep us safe was to, move. So we moved again, east side. We would stay on the east side. 3 months, 4 months, and that's what caused all of this disruption. I think the transition happened most during my fourth grade year. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, that was kind of fourth grade was rough for us, for me.
Mm. So your grandparents, they were still in the South?
No, actually, everybody moved up north, so they lived on the grandparents lived on the west side, uh, and we were both east and west, and my dad resided on the west side. He all uh, grandparents and father stayed west for the most part.
Okay, but he would still come looking for you
Yeah,
guys.
he would
Kind of
try.
Kendall.
Oh man, he would find us. He would, for some way, somehow, he would try to find us. And my siblings, I think my older sibling would kind of have conversation, dialogue with my aunts, and she would kind of slip that information, and that's how, we wanted him in our lives. I guess the siblings, the children did,
Yeah.
and but we didn't understand the totality of what was going on. So some of that information was kind of, you know, given
Right.
to.
Yeah, you weren't supposed to know that.
Yeah, we didn't know what was going on.
Domestic violence. You just knew. Yeah, you
We
just knew
wanted,
that
I wanted
mom and
my
dad
father,
supposed to
where
stay
he at?
together, right?
Right. Yeah, where he at? Let's get look. And my older sibling, of course, they were closer. Of course, she was the firstborn, my older sister Lena, and she would give him that information, and he would find us. He would be driving down the street, and she would say, "Oh man, that he found. How did he get over here?" And
Wow.
2 days later, we was packing up like the Jeffersons. We were moving,
Wow.
move to the next neighborhood.
Wow. So when you were in a certain residence for like 4 or 5 months, did your mom like take you to the park, or y'all have
That's what all, because I tell you, that's where it all began. I had a vivid imagination, and I would try to make best of it. Of course, being the youngest child, and longing for that male figure being in my life. I had, of course, had my uncles who would try to fulfill the role and try to step up, but it was nothing like my father. I would see the kids in the surrounding neighborhoods. Everybody had their dad, and they used to talk about me. I had, like I said, that's where this vivid imagination, just finding laughter and trying to find a way to cope with what was going on in my life, and begin to make commitments to myself, is saying, man, one day when I grow up, boy, I don't want nothing like this. And yeah, yeah, but it was all good though.
So what
Again,
kind of comments would kids make?
oh man, you wouldn't believe it. The Lone Ranger, they would say. I remember that one. They would call me bastard son. So what? Yeah, it was kids were during the 70s, early 70s, man, it was something else. But again, I didn't allow that to uh, dictate how I would live my life. I found a way to, again, to find humor in some of the things that was going on in my life, and then I just made the best of it, and yeah, became a womanizer. So I had those sisters in my life, and so I
Whoa.
knew how to manipulate the system, if I could use that vernacular.
Okay. Were you going to church at the time when you were younger?
Wasn't I didn't start church, believe it or not. I didn't start going to church until I was 14.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that's another story within itself. But 14 years old kind of pushed me in the direction of the church. Now, we were raised in church. We were raised, uh, backgrounds a little different as well. We raised Catholic, then became spiritual. Then I transitioned from spiritual to Pentecostal to apostolic, then back to Pentecostal. And it wasn't until my later years, 14 years old, where I kind of honed in and really found my true identity, found God, found purpose. As I stated, my family was kind of different, and I was always trying to find myself outside of what was going on in my life, and the church introduced me to a foundation. It gave me stability, made me the man that I was, because that was for the first time uh, kind of reacquainted myself with my dad. Like I said, the story was kind of, my background is kind of strange. My so just listen, I'm trying to cut through the field a little bit. I don't know how much time we have, so I tried to make it
As long
summarize
as
this.
you have.
Okay,
Don't
great. I'm
want to
good.
talk.
So okay, so I'm good. So here it started.
Okay, you got an hour and 15 minutes.
Okay, right. About 15 minutes. I'm gonna make this about 5 minutes. So my upbringing, my family. So I had cousins, uncles that was involved in things they shouldn't have been involved in, and so I was trying to tap into that, thinking that if I could get close to them, male figures, it would make me better. Um, However, it was because God had His hands on my life that He wouldn't allow me to go as far as my cousins. Let me say that. And as I tried to make way in that industry or game or way of life, it never worked out for me. At the age of 14, that was when my mom said it was time for me to leave, because in the environment that I was uh, being introduced to, let me say this, um, I got robbed. I'll never forget, 84, 83, 83, 83, 84, the sheepskin coats were coming out, and the rival gangs in the neighborhood saw the attention that I was getting based on what I was wearing, subsequently tried to rob me. And at that point, my mom said, "It's time for you to go. I can't, you're at this age where I can't deal with you. I'm going to send you to my father." First time in my life that my father and I began to develop some sort of relationship. It was still estranged, but my stepmother was involved in ministry, involved in church. So she introduced me to God through prayer. My mother, she didn't take me to church, but she was very spiritual. So I had a church upbringing, but nothing that honed me in to make me appreciate and value God. And so my stepmother, love her to death, appreciate her now. She introduced me to church. First time I started connecting with people, Deacon Louis Jackson made me the man. Started saying, "Oh, I see something in you." Pulled me in and pulled me up on his wing, introduced me to fatherhood through his example. But yet my father was still, of course, still drinking, still doing all what he was doing. But God showed me a different way. And the more I got involved in church, the more I started expanding and becoming or finding my true identity. Let me say that. Yeah. It changed my life. Yeah.
Good, good. So after you obviously went back to school and you were able to graduate, which high school did you graduate from?
Graduated from Redford High School. Got a scholarship from there to Olivet College to sing. Dropped out of school, enrolled back in school. Went to.
Did you say you got a scholarship to sing?
Sing, yes. So I was playing basketball, playing football, and my dad would never show up. And so I never forget, told the coach I quit. He's like, "What?" I said, "Man, I don't want to play this child's game. I'm out." And had the skills, great hands as a receiver, but because I didn't have the support that I thought that I needed as a son, in hopes that my father would show up, I quit. Never forget walking down the halls of Redford High School, just was humming, and the Dr. Lewis Sykes at the time was the musical teacher. Kind of heard the voice. He said, "Man, what are you doing, young man? Why are you in the hallway?" "I'm going to class." He said, "No, you come with me." Pulled me in, introduced me to vocals, started reading music, and that seed was birthed. It started in the male chorus, gospel ensemble, male chorus, and then the main choir. And so went from a second tenor, bass, bass, baritone, second tenor is my background in singing. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, natural bass, but sing baritone, second tenor.
So you went to college. Well, then, where did you go? The reason why you dropped out, was it boring or something, or it wasn't the city life?
It was life. I didn't want to continue. It's like, man, what's the use? Man, I'm gonna leave. Left there, went to work in the bank. Started working in a bank, First Independence National Bank, right there, Michigan Avenue, and downtown Detroit, Michigan Avenue, Shelby. Yeah. Started there, went back to school, went to Dorsey Business School, and said, let me start over again. Found my wife at Dorsey Business School. While I was working in the bank, found my wife, and we got married. Dropped out of school again, right? So my education is kind of crazy. Dropped out of school again. Enrolled in Wayne County Community College. We started expanding the family. Dropped out of school again because I said, "Hey, I got to raise my family." One thing my father taught me was work ethic, and gosh, made me a worker, made me the man. And so I dropped out and said, "I'm gonna raise my family." Pushed them, dropped out, and then here recently, finally went back to school, got my bachelor's degree, and now I'm working on my master's degree. 8 more classes than I was
good for you.
You're right.
So now your first job was at the bank. Well, what was it that made you leave college? Where did you go? Did you go out of town to college?
It was all in state. So Olivet College is up north. It's in the city. It's in Michigan.
But had you ever left home and been away from your family?
No.
Is that a part of why you wanted to come back?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it played a major role in that, because my mother raised us so close, as a close knit group.
Right.
I think family structure was something that I missed most, and just didn't have a desire. I think the seed of not being accepted. You work so hard at trying to fit in, but when I didn't fit in an environment that I thought would accept me, my way of dealing with it or coping with it was to detach. And so, no desire to, finish up. I'm out. Let me do me. Had all the tools necessary to be successful, but decided to do things contrary to what was right. And so I said, I'm gonna work. My dad was a worker, so I'm gonna do what he does. I'm gonna just work. But I didn't drink. That was the thing that I said I didn't want to happen in my life. I saw what drinking did to him, the way he performed when he got great man when he wasn't drunk. Tell you the truth, great guy, great guy. When he started drinking, different personality. I was like, man, I don't want none of this.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So what would John today tell that young man that was in college who dropped out because he didn't get accepted by other people? What would your advice be to him today?
Actually, you know what? My journey was so unique. I wouldn't tell him anything. I would say, just maintain your course. You will tap into who you were destined to be when you find out who you are as a man. I
Good.
think when I tapped into my identity, I was able to accept and embrace my future. Prior to that, I was just a lost soul. I was, if I could use this analogy or vernacular, I was in the mud or in life, just spinning my wheels, you know, moving fast at a fast pace, but going nowhere. But when I found out who I was able to establish a foundation, put some things up under that wheel, and start progressively moving forward. And in doing so, again, it made me who I am. But I will say that when I found God at 14, I was actually the color purple. I was in the show, sidebar to that, in the show, in that song, God is trying to tell you something. Maybe he's trying to tell you something right now. Never forget it. Lost consciousness in the show. I was with my cousin. I never forget, I was sitting in the chair, and it looked like I was going to sleep too, as my cousin would say, looked like I just fell asleep. But that was the first experience to me. And of course, this is where I had this out of body experience.
Wow.
Yeah, I lay back, and I recall vividly to this very same day. I can recall everything that happened. I'll never forget, I was saying to myself, man, what are they going to say? I died in the show. And so I was there. I could remember trying to scream. I was yelling, but everything had locked down. So I
Mm.
was, in my opinion, I was gone. But I'll never forget. I said, God, don't let me go out like this. First conversation. And people don't believe it, but I tell you, God he reigns on the, you heard the story, he reigns on the just as well as the unjust. I was so far away from being in a relationship with him that I didn't think that he would accept me or embrace me.
Mm.
However, first time I called on his name, first time I called his name, I heard about relationship, heard about the saints saying they call his name and made a difference. I said, well, hey, what the use? I'm gonna give it a shot. First time I called him, man, I started feeling myself come back. Second time I called his name, at first I said Jesus. First time nothing happened. Gradually coming back. Second time I was like, okay, wait a minute. Third time I called him, I snapped up. I said, man, did you hear me calling your name? And he was like, man, you went to sleep, talking about my cousin. I said, man, take me to my sisters. Man, I died. I got to get to them. Somebody got to pray. We got to pray. First time I ran from the show, I'll never forget. They thought I was crazy. But again, I'm
Yeah,
sharing.
that I would too, because
Yeah, it's like,
you
what's
should be
wrong with
talking
you?
about God before.
Right. He talking about God. He called. I said, man, he calling me. I got to go. Take me to my sisters to pray. At the time, of course, my siblings joined in to shine, the two that were in the church.
Okay.
I said, let me get to them. Let them pray for me.
Mm.
When they prayed for me, I felt this peace of calmness that came upon me.
Wow.
And I said, I knew then that it was something that the Lord was doing. It was time for me to get close to him. And of course, as I got closer to him, I started finding my identity, and that was 14. And so 15 years old, I started locking in. By 16, I got called in the ministry. I was youth minister at 16. And so first of all, I transitioned from junior deacon. I shared a little story. Deacon Jackson, Louis Jackson, kind of introduced me to how to be a man. I started seeing structure. Then went and graduated from junior deacon to deacon, working in the church. And I said, man, this is what life is about. I could serve the people, serve God, and just be that person that was impactful instead of being a person that was pulling away from other folks. And as I got closer to him, it became a minister at 16. 18, I became an elder. And so that was it for me. So 18,
Wow.
19, all of this was still going on in school. I was still trying to fit in, still trying to find the identity.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the closer I got to him, the more I was developing as a man, from a boy to a man. Yeah.
So while you're trying to find what you're gonna do, like, did you get some career advice? Like, well, okay, you're doing this now. You need to do that. You got this. What's the best career advice you got while you was trying to figure it out?
The best career advice happened when I was working in the bank. To be perfectly honest with you, Roosevelt Lawrence, you probably know him,
Yeah.
Rosie Sargent, was a customer at the time, and he kind of told me about being a police officer. Man, hey, brother John, that's what he used to call me, brother John. You know Rosie,
Yeah.
Roosevelt Lawrence, brother John. Man, I think you'd be a good guy. You'd be a good candidate as an officer. I'm like, man, I'm enjoying this teller life. This is cool for me. I've won best dressed in school, so I was always clean. So I was like, man, I like this. I like this, like the attention that I was getting from the young lady. Listen, I was going to work every day in a white tie and the suit. I was, as they say, so fresh and clean. I was enjoying that. But he would come in this uniform. I'm like, man, that ain't no magnet. To me, that ain't no magnet getter. I'm trying to, I'm trying to see if I can win. But but when he poured into me, go back to that little sidebar, pour back. He said that would be a good choice to me. And as it began to marinate in my
Mm-hmm.
spirit, if I could say that, I met my wife at the time, but I said I had to leave the bank, left the bank, work for HUD, and then that seed kept festering. Maybe I'll join the department. And so when we started expanding our family, of course, I met my wife. 5 years later, I told her, I said, I need a career. I want to provide for you. I was working, making good money, but I didn't have a career. Didn't have a career. So when I joined the police department in 1998, because again, I could have started in 93, but after we had the children, it was like, okay, can I do it now? She said, yeah, if you could pass the background, you can do all of this. And yeah, I guess I'll let you do it. And I passed passed the background investigation. Everything was just moving fast. So I knew then that this was a fulfillment, lifelong fulfillment, because here was an opportunity for me to be impactful with the community and change lives. And I was able to become, like I said, I was ministered. And so to people, I was like, man, I'm locking people up. I can marry you, bury you, and lock you up. Right.
That's too funny.
Right.
So when you met your wife, did you know right away that you want to marry her?
Oh man, listen, this was a true story. It was like the sun had invaded my space. I
Wow.
never forget it. She walked through the door, and I use this analogy story, you know, try to bring encouragement to other young men. It was as my world changed. I'll never forget. I was at lunch. Was supposed to be at lunch, and you excuse this story. I heard this. Ah, I'm sorry. That's a part of my Mac story. But as she walked in, I'll never forget it. I saw her from a distance. I was like, man, this girl is beautiful. I was supposed to be at lunch, and I'll never forget. at the time working in the bank, we had a little window that we could look out of the window and see when the next customer would come. And I waited. It was about 15 people in line, the first of the month. And I waited until she was the next customer and her and her partner. And I burst through the door. And my coworkers was like, you had lunch. And I kid you not, cuz I was like, next. Oh God. I walked up to that man because I was killing it. Man, I had this money green suit on. I look like money. I said, hey, listen, I said it's on the pop, and I'm gonna shit. Look, I use my very white voice.
Okay.
I went there. Hey, how you doing? You all right? Good. Listen, welcome. How can I help you today? Oh, funny story. Oh God, listen, I'm so sorry. Forgive me my folly, but yeah, that's how I went down. But when I met her, yes, I did know that she was the one.
So what was she saying? Or was she as attracted to you as you were to her?
Oh yeah, she couldn't resist me. She couldn't resist. She ain't here
because of the way you were suited up, right?
Okay, because I was so fresh and clean.
And,
that's
look,
it.
And that voice.
And right, come on now, double whammy. Hey, right.
All right. That's too funny. Okay, so after you decided you were gonna get married, were you thinking about having children?
Oh, I knew. Yeah, I definitely. But we waited 5 years. I think she didn't want kids. You know, she was the baby. And two babies, two different backgrounds, the yin and the yang, if I could use that. She didn't want kids. She's like, let's enjoy life, let's travel. I was like, no, I'm a family guy. I was yearning for something. And I knew if I had kids, I wanted to give to them what I never had. And so for me, having a family for the first time and then knowing God, I said, I think I got the formula or the blueprint to how to make this work. And so let's have some kids. She wasn't having it. We waited. And so during the 5th year, I said, listen, hey, we ain't having no kids. I'm out. So she said, well, I'll have you a boy. You gonna buy me a mink coat. What kind of ultimatum was that?
That's funny.
Right. So I said, okay, that was bet. We wanted to work. First kid, I got her mink coat. I said, you give me another one. You never know. You may get another one.
You are a comedian.
Right. Bought 2 mink coats and two boys later. Oh, I was
that's
winning.
Cute.
Yeah.
So did she come from a large family or something? The reason why she didn't want to have kids, or did she see her girlfriends? What was it about having kids that did not excite her?
She was young and wanted to live that life. She had her friends that told her, man, enjoy life. You don't need no kids. You're too pretty to be having kids. I'm like, whatever. Let's have
But she's married. That's different if you're not married. Well,
right. I was giving her everything she wanted. My wife never, she didn't want for anything. I took her when we got married. I moved her into her house. I didn't believe that she should stay in I didn't believe staying with no parents. So right before we got married, a week before we got married, I closed on the house. So we got married on the 6th. Let's see. Let me retract that. I closed on the house on the 14th. We got married on the 16th. We moved into our house on the 18th. And the reason being that we didn't move right into the house because the previous owner needed another day to gather his things. But I made a commitment to her and to myself that I'm going to give you a life that I never had. And so bought a house. I was 22 years old, had bought a house. And yeah. So I was going to make a name for myself and trying to do this well before I became a police officer. Yeah, this is like, I'm going to try to do this. Working like a Hebrew slave, though. My God.
Yeah, sound like it.
Yeah, right. But I wanted to, again, I wanted to do something or become something in her life that I never had. And the best way to do it was to prove her prove to her that this is how real men should live. You know, you don't have to want for anything. My dad did, ironically, he did teach me the principles about bring your check home. A man works, bring his money home, let the wife do whatever. But when she starts shopping and doing all this other stuff, I said, well, I'm gonna bring part of the check home, and then I'm sorry, that was did that come out? That's I told you I got Tourette's. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's too funny. Okay. Okay, so before your children were born, what about being a father were you excited about?
For me, it was my ability to give back to someone else and to be able to nurture and guide them and give them stability. I wanted my offspring. First of all, I said that the curse stops with me. The buck stops with me. The
Yes.
generation curse. I said I'm going to detach from the norm of what they said was supposed to happen in my life. I was going to be an alcoholic just like my daddy. That was some of the stigma that they said pronounced over me. You're going to be just like your daddy. You gonna drink. You ain't gonna do. You ain't gonna amount to be anything. And I wanted to prove the naysayers wrong and embrace who I knew I was destined to be, and of having a family, having children, but having men, young men, was going to be the start of it all. And so I made a vow to myself, to my wife, that I would provide for her and then provide for our children, give them a life that I wanted to have. And so I focused on that. That was my drive and goal throughout my life. Still is today. You know, what's going to make my family happy.
So after your two sons, did you think about having some more?
I wanted. We tried. We wanted more. I wanted a girl.
Okay.
So I wanted basically. I just wanted two. I wanted a boy and a girl.
Okay.
Up until my youngest son was born, I was excited. Last sidebar, I'm from. So I'm done. We didn't wait till we found out who our first child, what it would be. Second child, we wanted to wait, and so all the way up until his last appearance, before he made his appearance on scene, I was like, "She pretty. Oh God, oh man, she is beautiful. She got some big shoulders." I said, "God, but she's long." And the more I said, "Push, honey, push." And the doctor was like, "Mr. Hall, it's okay. Just, relax." I said, "She is gorgeous. And push, honey, push." And I said, "Oh God, that's another boy." I walked out of the doctor was rolling. The nurse, they were rolling on the floor. I walked out of there. Just like, "You all right?" I said, "Oh yeah, it's another boy." Man, listen, she was carrying different. Sarah, listen, it looked like she was having a girl. I
Girl.
promise. Oh, I named her. Her name was going to be Janae Deshawn. I mean, I had it all laid out. Went shopping. I said, I got this boy. I got this girl. It's going to be on and up. And I was in the, listen, I was in the academy. And during this time, I was in the academy. And the baby waited until, because this was, I was taking the post test. You know how it was back in the academy. They don't let you leave until you finish the post exam.
Right.
And so 8 hours, she went in labor when I left to go to work. 8 hours she was in labor. And when they finally let me go, they told me, "Oh, your wife is in the hospital about to have the baby." I was like, "What? Y'all didn't tell me," because had they told me, I was going to leave, because I knew I was having a girl, right? And so when I got to the hospital, and when the baby heard my voice, she 2 seconds. She went in labor. That's when the baby came. So I knew that's what I thought. I said, "This girl was waiting on me. This is destiny." Right.
And this girl was a boy.
Oh God, another boy. I'm like,
he must have had a head full of hair for you to think.
Oh yeah, he had an afro.
Wow.
Listen, first time the doctor was like, "I never seen this before." He was 24 inches long.
What?
They had, I kid you not. And you know how small my wife is.
Yeah.
He was 24 inches. He was 2 feet at birth, head full of hair, gorgeous. I'll show you the pictures. People won't believe it. Gorgeous. Looked just like a girl. Man, he could have been a girl. He should have been. No, I'm sorry. No, but
No.
no, no.
You don't mean that, but I
I mean,
understand what you're saying.
yeah. But man, but yeah, it
Wow.
was him. But fell in love with him. But I knew then that the Lord blessed me for a reason to have those two boys, and so I had double duty to pour into those young men and give them something. So I showed up to every game. I made
Wow.
sure that when they played sports, you know, outside of introducing them to God, because the Bible said first natural, then spiritual, I would show them this, take them to church, give them the foundation. But I remember growing up, I missed those father and son days at school because they used to talk about me in school. So those what they call dad and donut days. And so when the other kids would go to school with their fathers, I would have to stay home because I had uncles that said they would come, but they had other things going on in their lives. And so I always felt left out. But so when I had my sons, I was like, man, I'm going to their daddy donut. I don't care. I can get fired from my job. I'm going to every daddy donut. I'm going to, if they want to play, if they thought that they wanted to play any sport, I'm showing up to every game. So I was every game, whether it was soccer, baseball, whatever they decided to do. I wanted to be there instrumental in their lives. And so that's how I lived my life. That was one of the reasons why I dropped out of school. I said, I'm gonna push my family. So man, those boys went to school, graduated at not the top of the class, but in the top tier of the class. Both of them got scholarships to go matriculate to college. Both graduated from college. One graduated from Norfolk University with his degree as in accounting, an accounting degree. And the youngest son went to Western Kentucky, Western Michigan, then to Western Kentucky. So he has dual degrees. And so, man, and then I was pushing my wife. So all during the time, I put myself on the burner to push my family. That's why I waited 20 years later to go back, get myself together. And
Never too late.
never too late, never too late.
Right.
I want to encourage people, your viewers, never too late to finish what you started. Yeah.
Wow. Now you and your wife been married for 30 years.
30 years. This year, October 16th, 30 years as a married couple, 32 years being boyfriend and girlfriend. That's still my girlfriend.
All right.
32 years, she's
your
still
girlfriend, your baby mama, and your wife, all in one.
Now, man, I'm winning. Win. All I do is win. Yeah.
Yes. So, does your family have couples that have been married a long time?
No. So the only long-lasting relationship that I had experienced in my life was my grandparents, my father's parents.
Oh.
That generation, they stuck together through thick and thin. No matter what.
Right.
I saw dysfunction in my family. None of my uncles remained. None of my aunts stayed married on both sides. None of my aunts stayed married. So I saw dysfunction in relationships. But I kept saying, man, it has to be something better than this. How can you say you love somebody and then man, y'all you throw in the towel so fast? But that's what drove me. For me to be better was to stay in my son's life. But I will say this: there were some challenging times in every relationship. You're gonna have those times where you want to throw in the towel. But I live by these three principles, and I think this was the guiding force of what made me the man that I am today. You gotta. I live by these three principles. You got to commit to commit, and I mean you got to be committed. Commit to your commitment, or be committed to your commitment. And then, in order to give them what they wanted, I had to do something that I was not willing to do, that never been done, that I never saw. And so I lived by that. In order to give them what they needed, I had to be willing to do what was never done in my life. And the last principle that I live by is I understood that children needed your presence versus a present, the tangibles. And so for me, those principles nurtured and fostered who I became. My dad was always trying to give us gifts, a present, the physical present, but he
Yeah.
didn't give me his presence.
Hmm.
And I think for me, I yearned for his presence versus the present. And so,
Right.
and then committed. He lacked commitment. And so for me, my drive was I'm committed to my commitment. So man, that was it. Even though there were times, of course, with our job, you was always on call. They always had me floating around, and my goal was I don't care what they say, I'm gonna be in my son's life. So I would leave work. Uh, I don't know if I should be saying that, but don't matter. I'm at the close of my career anyway. So, I called in sick some days, left sick, but I wanted to be at my son's game, so I traveled with them wherever they were. I was with them. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense though. Now, you said your grandparents on your dad's side, they stayed together. They were from that old school, no matter what. They believed in their vows,
Hmm.
till death do us part.
Right.
Did your family have like some traditions or special holidays or events that they always celebrated? And did like Thanksgiving, you knew you was going to Big Mama house, or you was
Oh
going
yeah.
to
Oh
Grandma
yeah.
house?
Big Mama. Well, yeah. Grandma, granddad. They were big on that. But again, as we ran, I didn't become reacquainted with my grandparents in that form until my later years. We would go by occasionally. Uh, Prior to 14, my mother had us running, and she would always paint this bad picture of my father. And so we for us, we were just surviving. I would say, I always tell people, prior to 14, I was just a survivor here on earth, just
Wow.
trying to make things happen. I became at the young age a provider, and that's how I knew I was different. I started working, in true story. I've been working since I was 7 years old, and what I mean by that, yeah, I was when my mom lost her job when she got injured on her job, so she had disability check only came once a month, so she tried to get financial aid, and so my siblings and I had this. We were struggling. We had it rough, and so I worked. So I wanted to. It was something to drive in me at the early age. I knew what I wanted to become, but I wanted to be a provider. So I would work at the grocery stores. At the time we used to have baggers and Farmer Jack.
Yeah.
You bag up the groceries and then take the groceries to the car. And I don't know how they let me, this 7-year-old boy, uh, miss school. Listen, I was missing school some days to go work at Farmer Jack and
Wow.
on the weekend. And then when we moved from the west side to the east side, I started working at the Eastern Market. I would get up like a grown man. This God is my righteous judge. 7, 8, 9, 10. I was working in the Eastern Market selling apples, vegetables. I would leave at 3 o'clock in the morning when the trucks would arrive at the Eastern Market, and I would work from 3 a.m. to 6 p.m. But I was working. God is my righteous judge. But here's the benefit. I would get $10 from the farmer. His name was John, ironically. Farmer John would give me $10, but I was stealing from Farmer John. So he would leave. Oh yeah, I was putting $5. He would leave the stall because he trusted me. I was very a trustworthy individual, the appearance, but I was putting money in my sock and my shoe and stuffing it in there, and I would take about $25. But the reason why I worked so hard is that at the end of the day, he would give me bushels of vegetables. So he would give me greens and string beans and apples. And so I had a little wagon that I would pull every Saturday, but I would make sure that I was pulling my wagon. And my mother, as much as she didn't like it, me working, she let me go because I was that young man providing. And
Right.
she would always say, boy, you somebody. My mother, bless her soul. I had a moment, excuse me. Um, she was the one who believed in me and pushed me. And when she made a transition. That was probably one of the hardest things for me. Excuse me, but I will say that I lived to be that example for her because of what I saw her go through.
Right.
And I said to myself that I will never allow what happened to my family and my mother happen to my wife and my children. And so I had to find love, how to show love, how to be that example. And so all I had was God, work hard, bring the money home. And if it didn't work, make it work. You know?
Wow. So, with your grandmother and them not really being close to them, so do you guys have family traditions to bring? Like, do you have
My
big?
siblings and I do it right now. Every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, we spend time together. And ironically, full circle, my dad is included in that. We now, since his uh, early. He had cancer. We reacquainted our relationship. When I moved at 14, moved with him, changed my life. I saw his version of the story, what happened. Yes, he was an alcoholic. Yes, I kind of alluded to the fact what caused the disruption. But I found some things. There were some things happening on both sides. You know, when you're living in a household, you only hear one side of the story. So I grew up hating
Right.
my father. But when I became 14, I started understanding some of the stuff that he did and why he was doing what he was doing. I saw a different side. So I started embracing him, even though he still wasn't showing up. But I started seeing things from a different perspective. And what really solidified our relationship, again, my dad had cancer in 2000. And so there would have been 2015, yes, I'm sorry, yeah, 2015, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And with his cancer, it, it was just me and him. So I would take him every day to his treatments. I took 6 months off work to ensure that he would go to his appointments. And so that bond was reignited. I found something in him that I never saw before. That was the first time we connected with this father and son bond, because consequently I had to, I was cleaning him, doing the things necessary to provide for him
Wow.
during his transition with the cancer. But so many things that happened, but it made us so we established a family day. So Thanksgiving, Christmas, and so now that's big. That's big for us. We get together and just have great time together.
All right. When your kids were little, did they do activities with your dad and your mom?
No, they did with my mom, not so much with my father initially, because again, he wasn't there for me. So I didn't want that seed of poison to get into my children. I would take them around my mother. And so I was very protective of my children, if I could say that,
Right.
without being selfish. I didn't want them to be let down by my father because he was not a committer. And so, as much as he was happy to see them, because one of my sons carried the namesake, um, you know, he's another John, but again, I didn't want them to experience that. So I didn't want no letdown. So I was very protective. So we only went to his house, holidays for Christmas, get a gift from him, and then on Christmas, we would leave. 12 o'clock midnight, we open up a gift and we out. It's like, why you don't stay? I'm like, listen, I got Christmas for them at the house, So it was always, I was a disconnector that goes back to that trait. You're not going, if I can say this without sounding selfish again, I was like, you're not going to take my children. And so I would pull them away. So we didn't have family time. The family time for us is, hey, whatever we got to do to make it happen, I'm going to make sure my kids have it. And if it's being by ourselves, us four and no more, that's what we're going to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, what's your favorite story about growing up that that you've told your children? Do you have one?
Oh, absolutely. My favorite was my siblings. We lived a life of humor. We entertain ourselves by ragging on each other. But what my mother taught us was she said, all you have in life is the person that's sitting next to you. And of course, that was my siblings. And we were raised to be a close knit family. And it was my siblings and my mom. So we were intertwined like this, consequently, and that's why we still stay within the mile radius of each other now. So regardless if we're east side, we were all moving at the same time, ironically. Yeah, it's still a true story. One would live on the east side, we would move. We never left the east side though. But one would live on one street, 2 blocks over, the other sibling would be there, and I would be a mile away. And so right now I'm on 21, one is on 22, one is on 23. We're right there. It's still right now. And the last sibling is about 8 miles away. But again, we were always raised to be together. And we call each other right now. I have keys and access to their house. I'd walk, their husbands couldn't stand me. Because number one, I couldn't do no wrong. And number two, I would still go in there, and they still do for me now, like, as we were trained or taught, that John don't want whatever he want, they gonna make sure he good. Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah.
So
Excuse me.
when your kids was growing up, other than sports, what other type of activities did you guys do?
We listen, we didn't do sports. We
Oh,
for me, you my outside, you talking about my siblings now, or you talking about my children?
no, your children.
Oh, my children, all we had was sports. I wanted them, again, I wanted to make them play sports because I was living vicariously through them. So for
Okay.
me, oh, absolutely. Man, because I was an avid, I was a great athlete. Man, I would try out for teams and automatically the coach, man, this guy got it. I was running 4.2, 4.3 before that.
Whoa.
Oh man, listen, the track coach saw me and said, not only are you gonna run track, but yeah, you're gonna be wide receiver. Man, I had great hands, but again, because I didn't have nobody showing up, I dropped all of it. I could have went to college playing football or basketball or track. That and so I made my sons do all of that. I wanted them to run track, play football, and and to this day, both of them in high school, very strong athletes. That's how they got the scholarships.
Wow.
Jalen played baseball, basketball, and football, and was, man, awards. If you go to the room now, I'll show you the rooms, all kind of accolades because of that. Basketball and football.
So now you made sports a big part of their life. Did they want to be sports? I mean, when they were
Yes,
growing up, did they talk about they wanted to be athletes, or did you
that's
help?
all. No, I did not. I
Okay.
promise you, I did not force it on them. This is what they wanted to do, and so that's how we ended up playing 5 different sports. They inherited the gift, and that's why I'm grateful to God, because it was nothing that I forced on them. It was something that they inherited because again, God knew that that's what I wanted to be a part of, and so again, as I lived through them, I was able to fulfill those dreams, lifelong dreams of seeing myself playing basketball, seeing myself playing football, and they loved it. Man, they would get up like, man, except during practice time when it was football. Dad, we gotta go practice today. But while they were, man, in news articles and doing excelling on the field, they was loving it. They welcomed that experience. Yeah, true story. And that's how they ended up. And that's how they got selected to play, matriculated through college, and got selected to get the scholarships for college. Jalen got a full ride, Western Kentucky, full ride at Western Michigan, uh,
Wow.
because of his athletic ability. And John got it on the academics, but he played basketball and football, had a scholarship for both. And so, man, they were so great in what they did. That's how they got selected. Eventually, ended up playing. One got drafted by Seattle Seahawks, which is my oldest son. The other one got drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles. Um,
Okay. All
yeah,
right.
yeah.
So with your love of sports, you selected law enforcement as your career. Why didn't you choose a career in sports like a coach or assistant coach? Why did not
I did
the
that. I love the game, but I had a disconnect
oh,
from the game, and that disconnect was because I felt as though that was a part of my life that I missed out on. I love the game, but because I wanted to play the game, I didn't want to be a part of the game, if that makes sense. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I did. But I coached, listen, I did. I coached both of my sons. I coached them in baseball, I coached them in basketball. And a matter of fact, the neighborhood, our house was a neighborhood house. Our backyard was so big. I was coaching the children, the neighborhood kids, how to play, football, basketball. The basketball court in front of the house, man, our house was that house. So we played baseball in the backyard, football in the backyard, and basketball in the front yard.
Wow.
And helped developing. I was developing a whole lot of kids. There's a lot of young men that's playing now that would say I had some shape form of the development.
Now, your career in law enforcement, do you have relatives in law enforcement, or was it just Rosie that helped you say, yeah, man, you'd be good at this, and you said, yeah, I like it?
So the law enforcement in my family, I have a cousin that works for the Michigan State Police.
Okay.
I do have cousins now from my stepmother's side that are on the job, and of course you through
Yes.
names. Yeah. And so I think blood connect. I got one blood relative that was on the job, but then I have several family members from marriage on my wife's side. A couple of her people that are on the job. So yes and no, if I can say that.
Did you
One,
talk to any of them before when you making the decision to go into law enforcement, or was it just your wife that?
it was just my wife and her cousin, Bruce Ford. I think another name, Bruce Ford, retired. He was a deacon, that connection in church. I saw him. I said, man, this is the coolest police officer I ever seen in my life. Didn't know that he was a police officer.
What?
But yeah, didn't know it. And so when I saw him, I'm like, oh yeah, if he can do this, I can do this, man. Being the police is cool. he was a churcher. That's what made me really fall in love. Bruce Ford. Yeah.
That you can do both.
I could do both. I could be a churchman and a police officer. And yeah, he was cool. Man, it was the coolest brother in the world. I mean, still now. Yeah.
Okay. So, do you have any family members or close friends who express their beliefs differently from yours? And were they allowed around you? I mean, around your kids when they were younger? Because there are some people that say they don't believe in God, or
I had a lot of that.
be this religion or that. Did you have any of those?
Yeah, we had a lot of those outsiders that tried to infiltrate the circle. However, I was stern in my belief and my development of my young men. My responsibility was to them as their leader, spiritual leader, as well as their guidance as a father, the nurturer. And so, in spite of what the influences were, my job was to protect them from the mayhem. And so, when that negativity would try to infiltrate our space, I would just move my children from that environment, and we would disconnect. It worked for me, in my opinion. It's my sons, and they would probably have something different to say. But man, how come we can't hang with everybody else? I said, no, we different, But different for me was helping them become who they are today. And so it afforded them opportunity that they probably wouldn't have been exposed to because of their ability to stand out amongst the crowd. Their peers and their coaches saw something different in them. It was because of their upbringing, my sternness in my spiritual walk with Christ, and my ability to pour into them what I didn't receive as a young man without having Christ. And so I was very stern. And so consequently, they had to live a strict life. And
it worked out.
It worked out good for them. Yeah.
So when they were little, you had to explain to them the expectations of people that people would have of them because of who you are. Meaning, like, if you're a preacher's kid, they almost want you to be almost perfect.
Perfect. Yeah, right.
And so you had to sit down and tell them some things that you're gonna miss out on, or you're expected to do differently, or?
I'm gonna share something with you, and this is a true story. Here, when I said the yin and the yang, now as much as I was in the church, my wife wasn't as in the church as I was, and so they were always exposed to both sides of for the fence. So she would take them. I would tell them, no, they're gonna do this. She would take them, show them how to dance. She would take them. Oh man, to their cousin, they bugging out. I'm like, man, we church supposed to be church people. I'm raising church men. So the structure that I thought that should be. However, uh, they had a full balanced life. They were exposed to a lot of things. She would take them to concerts. She would take them. So they never experienced that the disconnect between being the preacher's kid, if I could say that. They were exposed to a full life. They saw from
Good.
both sides, and I think that was again what helped them develop as individuals because they had a full life, uh, seeing things from both sides, what the church and what the
Right.
expectations were from the church, and then how to just be normal people.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
So, what do you think the most important qualities are of a leader?
A true leader should practice what they preach. Uh, and the best way to do it is to, um, first of all, find your identity, embrace who you are as a man or a male or an individual. You got to find your purpose. Once you do that, as I said, those principles that I live by, be committed to the commitment. Whatever you start out with, be committed to that. If it's sometimes you got to go all in, but you got to go all in at all costs. And understand this as well is that you can't buy money, can't buy love or happiness, and people need your presence versus a present. And again, that's why I live by those principles. Be actively involved in what you're doing, and just be a person that's transparent. I think one of the greatest attributes that I have as an individual, I'm transparent. I'll tell you if I don't have it, or if I fall short, I don't mind saying, hey, I made some mistakes. Did I get it right? No, I didn't. But I learned. So use every level of your life as a learning experience, embracing your failures, but building from your failures and becoming successful, and believing in yourself. You got to believe in who you are, uh, and you can accomplish any goal, any task. Yeah,
Gotcha. So, do you believe in second chances?
absolutely. I live by those because
Okay.
I'm a guy of a second chance. Like I said, I should have been dead. Uh, life should have given up on me. Life should have taken me out. I should say that. But the Lord gave me a chance at 14, and I practiced that. I often say in my last, ironically, the job that I hold now within the department is I deal with those people who are transitioning from being incarcerated and trying to go back into life through the program called Project Clean Slate. And I often tell those individuals that I make contact with, you're not a prisoner of your past. And so you can become whatever you want to be. Some have joined or are part of the ministry. I still mentor some of those people now. But I live by that principle that individuals make mistakes, but they can become better. And it all started at the age of 14. God gave me a chance that I didn't deserve. He embraced me and accepted me for who I was, in spite of my lack of understanding my role as a human being, my role in trying to be a womanizer. I was 14. True story. I was 14 dating 18 and 19-year-old women. Yeah. And so I was always tall. People never knew who I was, and I always had a mature attitude based upon my upbringing. So
Mhm.
I'm 14. People thought I was 19 years old at 14. So
Wow.
I was living a life. I was driving, had no business driving, didn't have a license at all. But what? I was living my best life, so I thought.
So you thought.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, what are some of the biggest challenges you faced as a dad and as a pastor?
The greatest challenge, great question. The greatest challenge that I faced as a dad was those times that I wasn't able to be there for my children. I lived my life so much through them. is that it broke my heart when I couldn't be there for them, because it would always take my mind back to those times when I would look in the stands playing basketball and got the promise that they would show up and look and was scoring and doing good. But when I didn't see them people, whether it was my father, my uncle, or my cousins, those male figures that was supposed to be supportive didn't show up, that drive of not having them there. So my greatest fear, if I could say this with my children, was those moments that I wasn't able to go to the games and for them to look up and see me and me cheering them on. With regards to ministry, not being able to give the people what they deserve. And what I mean by that is, um, I have a heart for people, and I wish I had more resources to do all of what I want to do. Uh, I try to make it my business to give those children that are attached to me in ministry and those families that are attached, because I see it all. I try in each family that's a part of the ministry. I see those that don't have fathers. I see those that have brokenness in within them, and not being able to give them what they need according to what I believe that they need. Uh, Not having all of the resources that I want right now. But I will tell you this: I'm gonna be a millionaire real soon, and I'm gonna be able to do what I want to do without any question. And so, like last point, and I'm done. We do giving on purpose every year. We bless families, and this is one of the things that the Lord laid on my heart to do, because I grew up not having. Christmas for me was a Goodfellas box. Christmas for me was handouts for my cousins. So again, I wanted to be a blessing to those, and so I give on purpose. That was, we started a program at my church called Giving on Purpose, and we give out. This is all funding not from the church. This is funded from my wife and I, and then we collect from some of the members. But we bless families. They come to my church. Last year, we blessed over 200 families, and I had in my basement, in the church, in the basement of my church, the kids, the community came in and shopped. We got,
Wow.
man, it was, we laid it out like a store, and they walked out with grocery bags of items for Christmas, blessing people for Christmas. And we try. So that's what I want to do. I want to continue to be a resource to those families in the community. Thank God that He brought me from the city of Warren to the city of Detroit. And we're on the east side of Detroit. And I put this plug in, I know it shouldn't, but
Yes, you
205,
should.
oh, 20500 Maraw Street, right in the city of Detroit. And so we give on purpose. We do it every day. I have a Sunday we call Break Bread Sunday. I feed people every fourth Sunday of the month. They get a full course meal, not no hot dogs and potato chips. My desire is to give them something, give them create an environment that's conducive for them to embrace and find God in a way that they never have. And sometimes Jesus was this great advocate. When Jesus was doing ministry, He always fed the people. He was always inclusive and bringing the people together, but He never let the people leave without giving them something, both naturally and spiritually. And so I incorporate that principle in my ministry. I try to practice what I preach, live by example, and bless the people. And so my whole drive is to give somebody something that they didn't have, and what I missed out on life. Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So, if you could change one thing about the perception of pastors, what would you change?
I would say, if I could change them, understand that pastors are men first. They hold the title as a pastor, but they're men. So don't put them on a pedestal, uh, making them gods. They're just a connection to God. And if you learn how to uh, put the people in their prospective places, then you'll have a greater appreciation to what you have in front of you. I often tell people, I'm not I'm not the best, but I strive to be the best. Um, I make mistakes, but I'm trying to be as close to perfect as I humanly possibly can.
Right.
And that's practicing what I preach. So if I try to be committed to my word, if I say I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. If I can't, I can't. I think that when people understand that pastors are men, or that's when they can understand that they have faults and failures. So
Right.
never judge a book by its cover. Understand that everybody has a past, and be willing to be uh, uh, acceptable. What I mean by that is be willing to forgive, because a lot of men in positions that have power, they make mistakes. And
Right.
I think the misconception is they think that because they have power, that they're not susceptible to failure. They do. Pastors fail a lot. We don't always get it right. But don't, when I make a mistake, hold me accountable, but don't crucify me to the place
Right.
where you discount God. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So your sons play professional football, which is
Mm.
played on Sundays.
Yes.
What are your feelings about Sunday? The saying that Sunday is the Lord's day
Mm.
and people should spend an entire day worshiping God. How do you feel about people that say that or that particular saying?
Well, here's the thing. There's the thing, and I'm just being as transparent as I can. I think what the Bible says is true. First natural, then spiritual. I support my sons, but I will say this. Now, as a pastor, I'm in church every Sunday. I make it my business, regardless if they're traveling, if they're playing or not. I'm going to church. I'm gonna give God, and this is throughout their entire career as in playing sports. We would get up at 8 o'clock in the morning, go to 8:30 service. They were in church every Sunday, and then we left church and took them to the sports because they played baseball on Sundays or they played tournaments on the weekends. I made it my business. I would fly in at some time, or I would drive back, go to church, and still. So there's still a balance.
Right.
I want people to think that because they're in the church that they can enjoy both sides. I'm a living example that you can exist in two different worlds. And so I'm one of those pastors, man. My service starts at 10:30, 11:45, we out, so I can come home and watch the football game.
All right.
Yeah, yeah.
So, who do you go to for support and guidance?
First and foremost, I go to God. I pray. I pray a lot, and then I have a mentor. Bishop J. Sheard is he was very instrumental in helping develop me. He is the current presiding bishop of the Church of God in Christ worldwide, and so I look to him for support. And then I have a network of brothers that we connect with. Brothers connect with brothers. Um, my wives, well, two of my wives, I'm sorry, my sister's husbands. I try to connect with them. So we developed this bond. I didn't have a brother. My brother passed at birth. So I look to them. And so we just network. We kind of kick off one another. We hold each other accountable for our ups and our downs, and I try to live by that principle. But to identify with Bishop J. Sheard and my brother-in-laws.
So, going forward, were your sons a big part of your ministry, or were they in school when you decided, okay, I'm going to start my church? Uh, did they play a big part? Did you try to get them?
Nope, they that's kind of crazy. So I launched the ministry in 2014, and both of them were in college at the time. Ending, transitioning from high school to college. Uh, they come to church now. My wife and I laugh at it. They come when they. I got one. My oldest son just walked in the door. I'm like, man, when you come to church, dog, come on, man. You coming today? He'll send his son, which is my grandson. He won't come. That joke will be asleep. I'll be like, man, I can't believe this. But they do come on important days. Let me say this. I digress. They come on important days, but for the most part, no, they didn't work in ministry like I did. But I think that was part of them allowing them to be them versus me trying to force them to become. I think pastors, it's sad to say, but pastors try to force their sons into ministry.
Right.
Who's going to carry on the namesake? Nope. I let my sons be themselves and let God deal with them. They both have gifts. I will say this. Both of them have. John literally is my namesake. Same demeanor, same. I mean, if you look at him, my son John, you would think that you're looking at the younger version of me. Um, and heart is just like my everything about me. I see in him. And but again, he has his own personality. He come to church when he can or when he want to. Let me say this, but I don't chastise him. I don't I don't make them feel bad for not coming. I will say, man, you
Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay. How would you describe your first 5 years and then your last 5 years as pastor of your church?
The first 5 years were developmental years for me. Um, Transitioning into now embracing his role as a leader, uh, developing other leaders to become leaders, and then helping the broken to become whole again. And so trying to navigate that because I was still healing. I think that was in the early years in ministry. That's when my dad, I was rekindling that relationship with my father. So, you know, practicing what I preach, you
Right.
know, showing them by example that you can love a person through their pain. You can love a person through their failures, and embrace that and become better, and show the unified force. Um, and the latter 5 years, those are the first initial 5 years. The latter 5 years since I've been in ministry, because it'll be 10 years this coming February. So I would say the latter 5 years it's been finally accepting my role. First, I was embracing the role, trying to find out how to navigate through it, but now I'm embracing it. I got all this gray hair because I love people.
Okay.
Man, I went from a full black beard to now I got, man, you don't see none of this, no black. It's all gray.
Wisdom, wisdom.
Wisdom. I tell my wife, I'm gonna make you laugh. I said, let me tell you something. I've been in the presence of God. This is why. I, don't you remember what happened with Moses? He went to
Right.
God, he came back, he had white hair. I'm
Yeah.
telling you, they're connected to me. I'm somebody. I've been in God's presence. No.
All right. Okay. What do you think is something that every dad should know about their children, especially as it relates to like their career when they're growing, things that they're good at when they're younger? What should every dad know about their kid as they watch them develop?
You gotta tap into their personalities. I think what's important for dads is to understand who you're raising and why you're raising them. Seeing that they are individuals and not just just your namesake. If I could say this, they don't just carry your name, but they have their own identity, and then help nurture and develop them as who they are, and then let them become who they want to become. We try to force feed them.
Yeah.
Uh, you can't make a man by making him be a man. My dad used to tell you you can take a horse through the water, but you can't make him drink. It's
Right.
that horse's opportunity to take that sip. You can give them all of the tools, give them what's necessary, but allow them to become what they are destined to be. And so that's how I think that every man or every man that's trying to develop a young man, give them an opportunity to become what they want to be, but point them in the right direction, give them the tools that's necessary to become that. Let's say that.
Yeah. So, what family values have you taught your sons?
I think my son said it best. He said during one of the appreciation service, he said, "I gave them the blueprint of what it takes to be a man." I made first time, and I cried like a little baby. I was trying to be strong, but I never knew how much they value me as their father, but me as a man in their lives, and what they were taking away from what I was able to give back to them. And that was a transparent moment for me because, again, all of my life I was trying to provide for them, give them what they need. And he said it. This was last year. He said, I'm grateful. This is when he graduated, and this is during the time that he had got accepted his graduated from college and going into becoming a working with the Saints. I'm sorry, with the Seahawks. He said it during that time, and he said that. He said, "I appreciate my father for giving me the blueprint, believing in me, and allowing me to be a man. He gave me what I needed, and it's up to me to take the mantle and run." Those are not words verbatim, but that was the nucleus of what he said. But a portion of it was verbatim. But he
That's
said,
beautiful.
"Yeah, wasn't that something, man?" I was like, man, I was trying to
I
be,
would have cried.
listen, I was trying to be cool about it, and ironically, that was the day I had to work, so I was mad, but I was watching it from. I couldn't be there to see it. And as you said, what hurt you most? That was that experience. I had to watch it on a video that my wife sent me. She said it had the whole audience crying. Everybody was crying when they heard John say that about you. And I was like, I can't believe he said that. But and it's both of my sons. It's basically said the same thing. They said, "Dad, thank you for doing that." I said, "Man, I was only doing or provided giving you what I always wanted," and I think that's important. And so I say those principles. That's when that was that second principle that I said I lived by. And when I said that in order to give them what they need or what they never had, I had to be willing to do what was never done. And so that principle, again, that's the foundation of who I am. To give them what they never had, I had to be willing. I think the sacrifice is to be willing to do what was never done. What I never experienced, that's what I was willing to do. And subsequently, that's why they're the men that they are today.
Amen. Amen. What qualities do you value the most in yourself?
I think for me, being a listener, um, over the years, I've learned how to hear versus giving my opinion. I think a lot of times people they speak before they hear the totality of what's really going on. I think that's why people come to me now that they find it easy to talk to me because I'm going to hear you in what's going on in your life before I give my opinion on how you should handle life. And while you're speaking or engaging me in conversation, I often say, God gave us 2 ears to listen and one mouth to speak. Listen twice as much and be slow to speak because people need healing, but they can't be healed while you're trying to out talk them and not listen to what they're saying. And so I try to live by that, and I think that's one of my greatest attributes is being a listener.
What's a lesson that you learned the hard way that you have shared with your sons?
The lesson that I've learned the hard way is holding people accountable for things that they had no control over. Having the ability to let go because you can't be free until you free yourself by letting a person go of what they did to you that you deem as being uh, pivotal in keeping you from becoming. So never hold a person accountable to their past. Let it go, embrace them, forgive them, and move on. And I think that is one of the things that my children consider one of the greatest attributes because I try not to. I say this wholeheartedly. I try not to harbor any hatred in my heart. And if somebody wronged me, they said, "Man, you're the only person I know that love everybody and forgive everybody." I do. And the reason being is because I try to live a stress-free life if I can. And be that person that's going to embrace people, accept people for who they are, and allow them to develop and heal. I think for me, because in order for me to sleep at night, as much gray I do have gray, but that's because I've been in God's presence. But I think for me, what helps me sleep at night is my ability to not harbor anything in my heart. I'm gonna let it go. I do see and remember, but I ain't gonna let you mess up my future.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
When your kids were younger, you said you let them play a lot of sports. Was there ever something that they wanted to try and you was like, no, I can't do that? Or did you allow them to try and fail, different things? Like, you're into music. Did they, like they said, I want to play the drums. Were you open to it?
Whatever, I was open to whatever they wanted to do. I think that's a part of development, is you don't know who you are until you tap into any and everything that you want to do. That's how my oldest son, decided or found out that he didn't want to play uh, football anymore. Well, yeah, he didn't want to play basketball anymore. He wanted to play basketball, but got a scholarship for football.
Okay.
And my youngest son, they wanted him to play basketball, talented in playing basketball, but decided, I don't want to play basketball. I want to play football. So it's the opposites, but again, it's for them. I wanted them to tap into what they wanted to become. So they played, again, soccer. They played soccer. Every sport you can imagine them playing, they played. Swimming, basketball, soccer, but I let them develop in whatever made them feel comfortable, whatever they wanted to do. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the ball was always in their court.
Okay. What advice did you give your sons about academics and playing sports?
That was a must in our house. It was imperative for me to stress that, and that's why they did pretty good in school. Both of them, I must say, that was it. That was the stickler for me. In order to participate, you got to fulfill both. I always told them, you're a student first that happened to be an athlete. So student athlete in my house was very important for me. And I said, you're going to have opportunities that others may or may not have. Is because, number one, you have the character for it, but you're going to have this up here to go along with that character. And so dedication to your schoolwork is important to me. And we stress that. Education first. But even though I took a sabbatical for 20 years, I did go back.
Right.
I got my bachelor's degree, and I'm working on my master's degree. And they finally said to me, he said, man, you're going to get straight A's and everything. I said, yeah. They laugh at me right now. I'm on the dean's list now. Oh yeah, I had straight A's. And they said, how you do it? You working, you got a full. I said, listen, be committed to your commitment. My first principle. I said, not only am I going to tell you that I'm committed to it, but I'm going all in. It's all or nothing for me. And if I can do it, you can too. Right. And so, yeah, hey, practice what I preach.
All right. So when they were in school and they're in their athletics and they're getting the good grades, did you buy them a car?
I did. I tried to reward them accordingly. And then I tried to make them work for it. So they had a blessing for twofolds. Let me say this. The first one was a gift. The second one, excuse me, the second car that they got, because both of them I bought throughout their lives, I kind of gave them the first one. Second one, they had to have a vested interest in it. Mm-hmm. And the last one, you're on your own. I'm gonna pay your insurance, but you gotta work on it. And so it developed them. My dad, for me, it was quite the opposite. My dad, he psyched me out. Oh yeah. Oh man, he didn't give me nothing. He said, I'm gonna get you a car. I worked half the summer. Like, I got my money. He said, good. You got enough to get your car. Now go buy it.
You bought it.
He got me a plate, and that was it.
So your kids had to have jobs when they were in high school, or could they with all those sports?
They did not have a job. Their job was whatever academic sport that they were doing, whatever sport that they were doing, and they got rewarded accordingly. So if they got, they maintained their grades. I helped invest in their equipment. So, got them the shoes that they needed. But you're gonna work for these shoes, Doc. Okay. You're gonna work for this jersey. You're gonna work for this. But they had the best life, and I think it was because we were instilling in them responsibilities. First and foremost, teaching them how to be tithers. I live by that principle. God can't bless what He can't trust. That's just how I live. And so I tell them, if you don't want to experience a blessing, then don't do your part. If you can't hold up your end of the bargain, I'm not gonna hold up mine. If you want to hold me accountable to make sure that you have, do your part, and I'm gonna bless you with whatever you want. And up until I bought my son his last car, his car broke down. Last story, he he was driving on his way home. I bought him a car, and this car just happened to break down. And he had my grandson in the car, and he's like, "Man, I need a car." I told my wife, I said, "I'm getting ready to go buy him his car." And she's like, "You gonna buy him another car? Let him learn from him." I said, "Yep, I'm gonna get it." And he came. His car broke down. I took a car, drove it to him, drove him his car, took a trailer, took the old car, brought it back home. But I said, "This is it, Doc." You know. But I did it for him to show him that I'm a man of my word, and I'm gonna give you what you deserve in spite of your circumstance. But you have to continue to, because if you don't give a child an opportunity to fend for themselves, they'll have a sense of entitlement.
Right.
I didn't want my children to experience that as entitlement syndrome. No, you gonna earn it, and in order to receive it, you gonna have to show me something. Show me what you work. Yeah.
All right. So currently, you are a police officer, a pastor, a husband, and a dad.
Mm-hmm.
Describe your typical work week now.
My typical work week.
And you're a student, right?
Student, all of it. Yes, it's right. I'm juggling many hats, but you know what? Thank God, by the grace of God, He gives me the ability to do it. I'm up every day, 4:30 a.m. My work day starts. I work 6 to 2. Outside of that, I have my own home improvement business. So here's a work week for me. Monday through Friday, I work 6 to 2. Monday through Wednesday, church on Tuesday, Monday and Tuesday. Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. In the evenings from 2, after I get off work, I work my business if I'm doing a project. Tuesday is when I get out of school. Get out of work at 2. I go to church for about, in between that, try to take me a quick nap. Then I go to class. Then I teach Bible study. Then I go home. Wednesday, I go to work, do the business, do remodeling. Same thing Thursday, Fridays, same thing Saturdays. I try to go to work and do my business, come home and watch some kind of sport, or if I'm not traveling, and prepare for Sunday service. So that's it.
That's a lot.
That's a whole lot. But
that's
in between that, I have date night. So in between that, we'll make some time in there. I'm like, "Girl, what we gonna do?" I still try to do date night if I'm not tired. But even if I'm tired, I still kind of make a way. The Lord gives me strength to do it. I still don't know how I'm doing it, but I'm doing it well, according to what they say.
So how do you relax? The date nights, or do you?
Relaxing for me is doing what I'm doing now. I love people, so talking, and then I play this game called pool on my telephone. In between the breaks that I have, I shoot pool. I'm an avid pool player, and so they got a game called 8 Ball. So in between time, if I'm not studying, reading, I'll play a game of pool, and I get back, play a game of pool on my telephone.
Okay. All right. So, what's your favorite thing about each of your sons?
Wow, another great question. Their willingness to give back to people in spite of what they have themselves. One of the greatest attributes for me is to see them reciprocate what they've been taught. Wow, I watched my son. My oldest son is, like I said, he's a splitting image of me. He goes above and beyond to ensure that those that's connected to him, and I see it now through his son. My son now has his own son, and his son is 6 years old, and he is, in my grandson's eyes, a superhero. My grandson doesn't want for anything, and my son is the epitome of what I always felt that a father should be to their son. And I think that was a blessing for me to see it. You know, I didn't know that they absorb so much, but then I see him doing the same thing to his son. I see sometimes some of the conversations that I had with him that he has with his son. And that's so gratifying for me.
Right.
Man, it blessed me beyond measure. And the sacrifices that he makes for his son was some of the things that he saw, the sacrifices that I made for him. And my youngest son, who doesn't have a child, does the same thing for he's committed. So again, they have their own commitments in different ways. He's committed to his young lady he's been with, and he has a dog. So, but again, he's committed to his girl, his dog, and they're both givers. So yeah.
All right. How do you show love to your sons and your grandson?
Every single day, every opportunity that I have, I not only show up, but I tell them. One of the things that I lacked was hearing those words that I love you. As a man, I don't know what the misconception is for men to say that to their sons, but I stopped kissing them now. I stopped kissing them when it was 2. But every subsequently after that, I would hug them and tell them that I love them. I would kiss them when they were young, but when it was 3, I was like, oh no, man. My wife would tell me, they little kids. I said, no, they men. I'm raising men. I put them out the bedroom. I said, there's only one man in this bed. They 2 years old. They 3 years old. And they talk about it now. I put them out. I said, no, they men. Only one man in this bed. They sleep in their own room. So my sons, they're 3 and 4 years old, and they would scream, hey, Dad. I said, he was screaming when they were having bad moments. I say, say Jesus. Call Jesus.
All right. We're going to take a quick break, everybody. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned to Real Dad Speak. We're just going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Stand by.
My name is Sean Williams, and I am the founder and president of the Dad Gang Incorporated. The Dad Gang is a support group for Black fathers, and we are on a mission to change the way the world views Black dads.
I do agree there's a misconception about Black parenting and Black fathers.
Welcome back, everybody, to Real Dad Speak. We're talking with Reverend John Hall. He's the father, pastor, husband, student, and police officer. And we've been talking to him about raising 2 sons who are professional football players. And as you know, Sundays are meant for church, according to some people. And football is also on Sunday. And he's already told us how he works that out and is able to allow them to be themselves. So right now, John, we've come to the part of the show where I call it my final 5. It's either questions, fill in the blanks, or a statement. So number 1, what do you think all boys need from their dads?
Their presence. They need their father's presence.
Okay.
Versus a present, a gift.
All right. Number 2, what's one important lesson that fatherhood has taught you?
Love is unconditional. And in order to make the best of the moment, you got to be willing to sacrifice. Greater the sacrifice, greater the reward, in my opinion.
Number 3, how would your wife and sons describe you?
They would describe me, I think, as being funny, open, and transparent. And lastly, a person that always forgives too many people. They say I show too much love. I'm too vulnerable to people.
Is that possible? Okay.
Yeah, right. I don't know how they came up with that. They said I'm too forgiving.
Okay. Number 4, if you knew that God would give you an immediate answer, what question would you ask him?
I would ask him for more resources to be a blessing to families that are in need. If I could say that. I think for me, if I had a little bit more, if I had more to give, I'd probably be broke giving.
Okay, well, good. And the final question, number 5. What are you thankful for?
I'm thankful for life. I'm thankful for family. And I'm thankful for you for being in my life. And most importantly, this opportunity to share. I live for moments like this, but I live for my family, and I live to be a blessing to somebody else.
Amen. Amen. Well, thank you, cuz. I appreciate you.
Oh, I'll wrap my arms around you, cuz.
All right, I accept that hug. I accept that hug.
Anything.
Thanks everybody for watching, tuning in to Real Dad Speak. You can see a new episode every Tuesday, 7 p.m. on YouTube or Spotify. My guest today was Reverend John Hall, and you can visit his church, which is located at
20500 Morrow Street in the city of Detroit, Rehoboth International Ministries. God has made room for us, and certainly there's room for you at the rim.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, John.
God bless everybody. Thank you. Appreciate you.